everybody? It is Hit and Hustle Thursday from IrSportsDaily.com. I am your host, Greg Furlong, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyama. And Jamie, it is Thursday pre Notre Dame going on the road to play North Carolina, undefeated North Carolina. And we are here to talk about that. We're going to talk about the game. We're going to talk about, I don't know if you feel surprisingly, if you would use the word surprisingly about how we feel about Notre Dame going into this game. I think earlier in the week I kind of thought to myself, I don't know how I'm going to pick Notre Dame to win in this game, frankly. And here I am. I've come around to that feeling, and I think I'm ready to talk about how Notre Dame's going to win this game. So where are you at on this glorious Thursday?
I'm at the point now to here's what I usually do is when and I've watched North Carolina before this week, so I had watched them. Like I watched their Georgia State game last week, prior to Notre Dame playing Cal, and I had watched and I watched most of that App State game as well, and and then I start diving into the numbers and different things and stuff too. But and learning more about North Carolina as you go into it. And as I've done that and dug deeper into it, I really kind of see, a pretty good pathway for Notre Dame to win this game. And I just think that if you were just going to say, if it was just a battle of, if it was a 7-on-7 battle and it was just a quarterback thing, you'd say, well, they got a way better quarterback than what Notre Dame has. And then you'd pick North Carolina every time.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other factors that go into it. And I think that Notre Dame, there's a lot of matchups that favor Notre Dame in this game. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised at all if Notre Dame won this game and got their point, kept North Carolina's points down way more than people expect.
Yeah. So when I watched North Carolina play, I watched the Georgia State game. And it kind of occurred to me, like watching their offense, like how familiar it all was, like, oh yeah, like that's right. They got the RPO thing, and so they're going to pull it sometimes, and other times they're going to give on the run, and it occurred to me as I was watching how familiar it was that this is what they do. Like Notre Dame has planned for this. Like they've played this. 2 years prior, right? And I think that's a big advantage for the defense, especially because they have a bunch of people who have played against North Carolina already, and they are accustomed to, what this offense is, right? And I think the more you play it, the more you get used to it, and the more you kind of like get a feel for what it is. And so that occurred to me watching North Carolina play. And then their defense is just, I was looking at the numbers. They're worse than the 2018 Wake Forest version that kind of sprung that offense. So that the 2018 did, they changed quarterbacks obviously, but the offense was struggling in the first 3 games, couldn't score a lot of points. The most points they scored was 24 against Michigan. And then suddenly they break out for 56 against Wake Forest, and this defense is worse than that. So, Jamie, you referenced matchups. Tell me about the matchups. Do you think that are favoring Notre Dame in this one?
Well, I think Notre Dame's defensive line. Good morning to you.
Yes.
I think that Notre Dame's defensive line against North Carolina's offensive line is, and it's been that way really for the past 3 years, right? Because they played them 3 years in a row. They have a big advantage. And I think probably even more so than some of the other years. Like it's kind of shocking to me to see that Georgia State and App State had over 40% pressure rates on Drake May in those
I think you
games.
had 46%.
Yeah. And I think if those lines are doing it, I'm certain that Notre Dame's line is more talented than those groups. And I think that if Notre Dame plays the exact same way they played against Cal, which I kind of think that I don't see a reason why they wouldn't, based on kind of how they responded in that game and the kind of confidence a game like that can you can gain from that, from getting 6 sacks and probably having a few more and guys winning so much one-on-one. I think there's a chance that Notre Dame's defensive line is just going to dominate and take over this game. And so there's that. They have young running backs who aren't great at picking up the blitz. They, graded very poorly at picking up the blitz. I think that's something that when I think of like Maris Liafo blitzing, and we remember from that 2020 game and what kind of impact he had in those games, and those guys were much better pass protectors than these guys. And the way that he's kind of run through some of these running backs in blitz pickup, I think that's going to be an issue for them. Also, I think they are extremely explosive offense. They have a ton of talent. Obviously, Josh Downs is coming back. That's going to make them more talented and all that. And I think the familiarity with, you mentioned that all these secondary guys like DJ Brown, Houston Griffith, big part of that 2020 game. Remember, Kyle Hamilton was out with a targeting call. So these guys have played them 3 times. You have, Clarence Lewis, Tariq Bracy. These guys have all played against these guys multiple times. So they're familiar with, what they're doing there and how they played Ohio State and what they did to limit them as, they only gave up 1 catch of 30 yards or more. Ohio State leads the country in that sense. That they have 15 of receptions of 30 yards or 15 plays of 30 yards or more. Notre Dame only gave up 1 to them. So that means they have 14 in the last 2 games. They've been racking up these big plays. And obviously that's something, but I saw a lot of tweets about, well, yeah, Ohio State's really figured it out on offense. Like, I think Notre Dame's defense had a lot to do with that. So I think in that kind of matchup, I kind of see the points being down. So, I mean, the big question is what's going to happen with the Notre Dame offense against this, like you said, the poor defense. And I think, Ian Book is better than Drew Pine. That team had Miles Boykin. This team doesn't have Miles Boykin. There's a lot of things there, right? I mean, remember Alex Bars got hurt in that game, which was a big deal. So you'll have to kind of see there. I don't think Notre Dame's dropping 56 in this game, but I don't think it's out of the question that they could score 30. I think it could happen.
Right. And especially, I mean, it involves some assumptions, right? So it involves assuming that Notre Dame's line, especially on the left side, continues doing what they did against Purdue. Not Purdue. I keep saying Purdue. It's Cal. It's the Cal game, right? I think I just keep thinking of
Plummer and yeah.
I just keep thinking of it. So, I think the thing about it is, so you're making an assumption that the left side of the line is going to continue. The other part too is you have to. I think of the Cal game in terms of just like after the first Notre Dame touchdown drive, because the first quarter and a half, like they're just stubbing their toe every time they get the ball, right? They're making mistakes that frankly are not opponent oriented, right? Drew Pine throwing the ball in the dirt is not an opponent thing. Overthrowing Michael Mayer is not an opponent thing. Styles dropping the ball, fumbling snaps, false starts, that sort of thing, right? Like that's has nothing to do with the quality of Cal's defense, right? Once Notre Dame stopped doing all those things, then it became like, okay, like they actually were pretty efficient on offense, right? So that's what, like, all 24 of their points came off of that, right? In basically 2.5 quarters. So that's when you start to project forward. Like, okay, if this is how it starts against North Carolina with a defense that isn't very good, they've given up over 200 yards rushing to both App State and Georgia State, right?
Gave up 40 in the fourth quarter to App State. 40
in the fourth quarter, like in 40 points. Yes. Like it's yes. Like I said, it's the worst. It's their defense is worse than that Wake Forest unit that Notre Dame shredded. So you kind of project forward and say, okay, if they can keep this going, well, now you're controlling the ball. They haven't played anyone as physical as Notre Dame. And Brett Ramsack, he asked the question, how worried should we be that North Carolina is coming off a bye week? And then Drew Payment responded, they're 0-4 coming off the bye in the last 4 years. And Notre Dame is 3 of those. Notre Dame is 3 of those losses, right? Like this has not been a positive thing for North Carolina, right? They haven't been able to, they haven't been able to capitalize on having the bye prior to Notre Dame. And I got to say, I don't think it's to North Carolina's benefit who they've played to start the year, because look, say what you want about the struggles that Notre Dame had on the offensive line and the defensive line early in the year. Ohio State's real team, and Cal, that they've got a good defense, and that's like, there's a difference between Cal and like App State in terms of on the lines and that sort of thing, right? So North Carolina has not seen anything like Notre Dame right now, right? Like, we're talking about App State, you're talking about Georgia State, and I think it was Florida A&M. That's not comparable, right? And you can't simulate it in practice either. So I think that too is kind of like, it didn't really shake out well for North Carolina in terms of being physically prepared for what Notre Dame can do on the lines. So I don't know. How do you feel? Do you have any concerns about the bye?
I don't have concerns. I mean, the only concern is that they got healthier, right? Obviously there would have been guys who missed games. Like Downs might not have been available if they played last week or whatever, right? Like, so obviously that's a thing. And the other thing is Downs coming off a knee sprain, and he might be fine for this, but he plays a position where there's a lot of like hard cuts and and he might not be the Josh Downs that he's been so far. So that is something else to think about. But I think health wise, it helped them obviously. But I also don't think like Notre Dame isn't really like a super beat up team right now. I mean, they have injuries, but that's like any other team. Nothing that would, I think hamper them more so than it has. So I don't know. I don't think. I think sometimes the bye can be overrated. To be honest, like it can be like if you need to like fix things. So it's funny because they're coming off this thing, and you think, okay, well now they have a chance to kind of fix the defense. But when you're that bad against poor competition, and then they've been vanilla to start the year, purposely vanilla, because they're like trying to simplify things and like, let's just be athletes, whatever. Then it's like, that's not working. So maybe they come out and blitz a lot more. They're only like blitzing on like 11% of dropbacks. Maybe they come out and they just like bring the house like way more, and then they got to prepare for that kind of stuff. Maybe. But then I feel like they're just ripe to get beat when it comes to like big plays, because they already just like are like having breakdowns. So if you're adding more to the menu for them and they're already having breakdowns, I just don't know if that's the kind of solution. So it's easy. It's a lot easier to go from, the BVG, like, oh my gosh, like here's the play sheet. It's just boom, 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 like huge. And then you're like, let's shrink it down to this. And then we'll just play this and play fundamentals, keep everything in front of us, whatever. Kind of similar to the 2016 defense for Notre Dame, where they did that. And then, I mean, they certainly weren't a good defense, but they played better because they just didn't have as many just colossal mistakes, right? And with this North Carolina team, they already are at the low level. So it's like they can't make it simpler. So what is the options there? They try to do a lot more there. They just don't have a lot of guys who are playing very well either. So I don't know, like talent wise, I think a lot of teams the ACC would trade for their roster in terms of like they've had like 4 and 5 stars on the roster. A lot of guys who should be dudes, but they don't play like dudes. So I don't know. I don't know how much they can fix there. And then I think, other than, I just think on offense, they already were kind of rolling pretty good. They can add a couple more wrinkles in there, but that's not really Longo. Kind of they are who they are, right? They are who they are, and they execute it very well, and they have really good players, and that's kind of how they've had success. So I don't really see like all of a sudden they're coming out and like, whoa, like I didn't see this in the game plan. It's just like way off. That's just not who they've been.
So they do have good players, but something that I was thinking about last night is they have good players. True. But of the 3 meetings, and I'm including the one that's coming up on Saturday, of the 3 meetings, I think this is the worst North Carolina receiving core in terms of proven, especially since Josh Downs is kind of, iffy, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is the best secondary that Notre Dame has put out there against North Carolina as well, because in the first matchup, you had a half of Kyle Hamilton, so he didn't play in the second half. And then you had he missed the game last year, right? And now you have Tariq Bracy playing the best ball of his career. You have Clarence Lewis, who's been playing very well this year. You have Ben Morrison. You have Brandon Joseph and DJ Brown. DJ Brown's playing the best ball of his career right now. So I think, I'm not saying it's like a dominant secondary by any means, but like Notre Dame
was better than the ones they've had. Yeah.
It's better than the ones they've had against a lesser version of what North Carolina has had. So obviously Notre Dame, in 2020, they hold them to 17, right? And in 2021, they obviously had a bunch of problems, but that was very much that was a big play thing, right? Where they gashed Notre Dame with the running backs. And I don't think their running backs are what they brought last year with the kid who transferred from Tennessee.
Yeah, Ty Chandler.
Right. So I don't think they're as explosive there. Now, obviously, I think Drake May is the thing that basically makes it a question, right? Because he's looked really good in the first 3 games. And obviously, the opponents have not been very good defensively, and that's a true thing. But at the same token, I think if Tyler Buchner had looked like Drake May against the same opponents, I think we'd all be saying Tyler Buchner is the real deal, right? So, so it's.
I think Drake May is the real deal, though.
Yeah, I think he's a good player.
I really think he's really good.
Yeah, he's a really good player. But Notre Dame has played a similar style quarterback in Sam Howell before, right?
Yeah.
And so, obviously they're going to have to clean up the quarterback scrambles and quarterback runs and that sort of thing. And I think that's a pretty big vulnerability for Notre Dame in this game. But beyond that, like you said, I think the matchups do favor Notre Dame here. And I think we need to not kind of overreact to, I guess, the loss against Marshall, right? Because obviously, Notre Dame's up in the fourth quarter in that game, and they give up the drive. And instead of going ahead and scoring like they did against Toledo in 2021, they throw the pick six and they end up losing the game, right? But then they come back and they beat Cal in kind of a way that's like indicative of a team that's still trying to find itself, right? And if they had end up beating Marshall and then beat Cal in the exact same manner, you would say, okay, this team is starting to figure itself out, right? On schedule, right? Because losing to Ohio State isn't some big surprise, right? So you would say, okay, 2-1, figuring itself out. We're going in North Carolina, and then all of the factors that we're talking about now are like that favor Notre Dame. Like we would think, okay, it's going to happen right now. Obviously, losing to Marshall has shaken all of that confidence, and we look at it in a just completely different way because you lost the game, right? So, but the factors are the factors, right? And the advantages that Notre Dame has are still advantages, And so I think that's I think the way we think about this is, I think it's skewed a lot by, the loss to Marshall. But I do want to, I guess, ask, like, how confident are you that the way that they ended the Cal game, and when I say ended, I mean the last 2.5 quarters, how confident are you that that's what Notre Dame is going to be offensively, that we're going to see that type of performance to start the game against North Carolina?
I can't say I'm overly confident because I just don't I don't know for sure. I also don't think they played well enough where it's like, I think they played well enough where you can say, hey, we're better. We're getting better. But I don't think they can say, like, guys, let's, we're there. Like, let's start a gun. Let's go. Like, yeah. I don't think there was any kind of sign of that. And I still think there's like a ton of questions about the
Mm-hmm.
team and who they are on offense, right? Because if that's who they are in terms of like, they don't even bother throwing it down the field at all on like a completely beautiful, pristine day in South Bend, then I got a lot of big questions of what they can do. And I mean, you got to be able to take advantage of the fact that North Carolina is like giving up a ton of big plays in the passing game. You got to be able to do something there. You got to do something more there, right? So, like Greg, you tweeted out the one play, which was the similar play to Mayer, the touchdown to Mayer, and that throw to Mayer that Pine missed earlier in the game on a third down, right? And like those plays, you got to hit, because if that hits, that like opens it up. All of a sudden, you're rolling and you're getting those kind of plays. It can't just be if your offense is steady run, like don't get negative things, and then maybe you get this like perfect like great calls by Tommy Rees on those the angle route, and then you get the other one where you get the vacated safety pump, whatever, right, with Tyree. Like, yeah, you want to have some of that, but like sometimes you dial that stuff up and you don't get the look you wanted, right? And so you can't rely on that kind of stuff.
Right. It can't be perfectly hit every single time. It can't be like 3 or 4 of those. Yeah.
Yeah. So if that's how Notre Dame is going to win the game, then I would pick UNC every time. So you have to be able to execute at a higher level in the passing game and doing more than what they've done. Start this kind of stuff with, I don't mind like those throws to the perimeter, those little RPO throws to the perimeter. Those are good plays, right? Like you dump one off to Styles, he gets 19 yards. Like that's a good play, right? Like,
right.
But you have to be able to do more than that. And what are you going to build off of that? So that's just really kind of the big question. And it's kind of the big question about Notre Dame the rest of the year, really, right? Because, I was saying to you right before we started recording is this is the kind of game where you're either going to go and look at it and say, okay, we got something here. We're building something. We got a chance to kind of reboot and do some stuff during the bye and build off of everything that we've shown in these last 2 games with Drew Pine. Or you look at it and you're like, man, maybe we got to start to get Angeli ready, and we got to get him, prepared during these next 2 weeks, and to maybe not start, but to be ready, because I don't think we can. I don't think we can get away with that all year, and I don't think they can, right? And I saw, gosh, I can't remember who posted it, but somebody posted something about how, like, if you look at Notre Dame, the quarterback matchup for Notre Dame the rest of the year, I mean, Notre Dame's going to have the worst quarterback in a lot of these games, and that's not a great thing. You can still obviously win, without that, because, there's been a lot of teams that have had to play backup quarterbacks and win, but it's a lot harder. You want to have the better quarterback in those games, or you at least want it to be close. And so you just want to see where with Pine, where it's getting, the gap is closing to where it's close. And obviously he's not going to be Drake May, but against some of these other teams that they're going to play, like, can he be close to that? Because you don't want to get in shootouts, but you got to be able to do more than they have.
Right. And so I don't like Notre Dame having the better quarterback is honestly like subjective. It doesn't really matter, because Notre Dame has the better everything else, So what I would say is Notre Dame, it has to get to the point where the defense feels threatened by certain aspects of the Notre Dame, offense, right? So it's like, okay, North Carolina goes into this game, they're probably pretty concerned about Notre Dame just running at them, right? They're going to say to themselves, we cannot let that happen. Like if they just run at us, we're going to get beat, right? They're not concerned about getting beat vertically. They're not concerned about Notre Dame winning one-on-one matchups on the outside, right? That doesn't mean Notre Dame can't. It's just like they're not overly concerned about it. And Notre Dame needs to get to that point, because that's what opens up everything else, right? Like if you're a defense that's not playing with fear of the opponent, then you're in real trouble,
Yeah.
Like because then they don't. It just, the fact that it's in their mind affects how they react to all other things, And as a defender, like you just think to yourself, like Notre Dame has kind of a lot of like their defenders have a lot of stress, they do. Notre Dame's defenders, because North Carolina can hurt you multiple ways, right? They can go short, they can go vertical, the running game that they have to worry about it, right? Now, it's not they can't handle it. It's just that there's a lot more going on. North Carolina has a lot less concern about that. So that's where Notre Dame needs to get, right? And that's the real question between, Pine and Angeli. Like there's a world in here where even if Notre Dame wins the game, they leave the game thinking to themselves, okay, we need to get Angeli going, because there are certain aspects of this offense, like they need to be better. It can't just be 17-14 every single week, or it can't be 20-17 every single week. Because you're not creating the best version of yourself, so that's the thing that like when I think about this game that I get very hesitant, is because so much of the way that I think Notre Dame can win and will win, it is still theoretical. We haven't seen it. And we say, Notre Dame can't just be an offense that's throwing, bubbles and screens all the way down the field, because it's all presupposed on it being 3rd and 3, or being 3rd and 2, right? And
you can't be in an offense where you just are dead on 3rd and 5+. Like you can't like that. I'm sorry, even the best offenses in the country have to convert on 3rd and 5, 3rd and long. I mean, you can't convert on 3rd and medium at a decent rate. You're gonna struggle, right? And that's 3rd and medium. Like I get it, 3rd and 9. Like maybe they don't have all the pieces, maybe they don't have the quarterback, whatever. But like if you're in 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, and you're not like you don't have a shot, that's a problem.
And not just that, but if you're afraid of 3rd and 7, well, then that means you're going to be very conservative on 1st down.
Yeah, and you become predictable as a play caller, and that's the last thing you want. And then you make it's just the whole thing of all a defensive coordinator wants is to make teams as one-dimensional as possible. Because if you can do that, then it makes what you call so much easier. If you have an idea of what's coming, then wow, there's so much you can do to scheme up stuff to stop it, right? And so that it matters. And I think and I wrote in 6 Thoughts today that this game, like you said, it doesn't matter. They just got to win the game, right? Get into the bye, win the game, whatever. Who cares if it's ugly? It does not matter. Does not matter no matter how they win, right? But going forward, how you win does matter. It does, and it's not just people think it's just like for these ranking shows. No, it's not just that. It's what your own players want to play in a certain type of offense. It's like I didn't commit to Navy. I don't want to win. I don't want to play in an offense like this. It's like the recruits. It'll be like, so what are you going to do when I get there? Like, what's going to happen? And they're thinking about this own stuff, but then there's definitely other coaches who are negatively recruiting them. That kind of stuff matters, right? So you got to show signs of life and signs of progress. I mean, it's important. It's very important. Obviously the most important thing is winning. But you have to be able to do more. And if you build out on this too, you're going to have a better chance at winning. That's the main point.
There's been a lot of, I guess say talk chatter. I don't know about getting Tobias Merriweather going and how that's going to work. And I was thinking about this, and I think he's got to, at least initially in the, like this game and, going forward, I think it's got to be the Chris Brown role from 2012. It's like you put him in the game and you throw him a shot. And if it hits great. And if it doesn't, then okay, like you just move on to the next time. Because everyone remembers the Chris Brown, 2012, the Oklahoma catch. And that was one of 2 catches. And it was like one of the biggest plays of the whole season. But they tried to hit a deep shot to him against Michigan State where he's open and Golson overthrows it, right? They tried to hit another deep shot to him in the Michigan game. That's how they opened the game. Golson threw an interception. But they kept trying to get him deep over and over again, and they just couldn't hit it. And then finally they did. But that's what got him involved in the offense, and that's what got like you're using your ability, a player's skill set, to help you win games. And I think that's what they need to do with Tobias, because maybe he doesn't understand a whole bunch of intricacies and that sort of thing, but you can put him in and throw him a post route. Just tell him like, hey, this is a pre-planned play. We're gonna throw you a post, or we're gonna throw you a corner or a fade or something, right? And if the defense has an idea, so what? So what? Like, so they know, right? Like when Notre Dame puts in the rocket as a freshman, right, and they say throw a post, like the defense knows, okay, that's the deep guy. They're gonna throw it to him. You still have to try, and I think there are opportunities in the game to try to get him, going and get the offense going and that sort of thing. Because one or two big plays like that can really flip things, and get you a touchdown when, when the game might be going the wrong way, or you need to blow it open, go up by 2 scores or something like that. Because something that I'm really worried about is, we saw in the 2020 game, yes, Stovall in 2002. Great point. That's absolutely right. We saw in the 2020 game, North Carolina scored touchdowns on their first 2 possessions, right? And that was mitigated by the fact that Notre Dame also answered both of those scores with touchdowns. So it's 14-14, right? I would be concerned if North Carolina comes out and scores in their first 2 possessions, Notre Dame answering right away. And if this team gets behind, the 8 ball,
I think if they're 2 scores down, it's going to be tough to come back.
It's going to be tough, right? And that's the thing with this team is if Notre Dame goes down 2 scores, it's like, it's going to be tough. If North Carolina goes down 2 scores, they're still like, okay, like we still
they can score on any time. Yeah.
Right. So that's where it's like you think about like, okay, we can, I like Notre Dame to win this game. I like the matchups and I like all these other things. But at the same time, if the game starts a certain kind of way, I really don't like Notre Dame in this matchup.
Yeah. And I think too, kind of like building on that too, you can't play that same way against like if you have the lead against them, you have to play to continue to keep scoring points.
Right. Yeah.
You can't play like you do whatever you have to do to have success, but it's like you have to try to continue to put points on the board because they are literally 1 play away from breaking off like a 70-yard play. Like it's just that. And then all of a sudden it's a tie game and all of a sudden whatever, or all of a sudden they go up, right? Like that's how things can flip. So you have to be more aggressive on offense in this game. I think it's a must.
I saw Notre Dame football got Tobias an NIL deal this week. I think it was an accident, especially with the rumbling surfacing with Styles. I don't think the Styles stuff is.
Don't read into that kind of stuff where somebody posts on an Ohio State message board. That means nothing. Like, get out of here with that stuff. I'm sorry.
It was framed.
Not trying to say you, C-Mac. I'm just saying Notre Dame fans in general, everybody's on edge. I do think that, like, if Notre Dame's offense stinks this whole year, like, it is a real thing for people to look. I mean, people shouldn't be shocked to look around. Like, Jermaine Burton literally left the national champs to go to Alabama. And it's like, Stetson Bennett's pretty good. Like, and their offense is still pretty good. So it's like anything can happen if they think that they're going to have, like, people think. I don't think Styles thinks that way. And I definitely don't think his family thinks that way. But who knows, right? Like there's all these other factors that go into it that I think, can play a role in it, but don't get caught up in like those kind of stuff. Like you'll go insane. I don't think any of that stuff. And like the Tobias getting an NIL deal, like, I don't think that's like, I think that's just, I bet it was more coincidental. I don't think it was like, man, we really got to get him an NIL deal. Like that's not how it works.
Yeah, I mean, it was framed. I kind of liked it. Like, I really enjoyed the tweet that went out from some account from Ohio State, it was a possible rumor. What is a possible rumor? What is that? Possibly someone is making up a rumor. So it was good. I kind of enjoyed it actually, just for like the ridiculousness of it. Possible rumor. All right, Mike McCarthy, possibly the Dallas head coach is in the watching Hit and Hustle.
Yeah.
Pine didn't forget how to play quarterback. He's going to get better. Go watch his high school film. He has all the tools to be as good as Ian Book. Here's the thing. He played how he played, right? So we're gonna go off of that. Maybe Lincoln Riley did want him. Maybe he did. But the fact of the matter is that Notre Dame didn't want him to throw the ball down the field against Cal. That's
this game. And then also too, that what matters was that he seemed at the beginning of the game, you would have said like, oh, this guy was really like mentally affected by like throwing a bunch of picks in the blue gold game and then throwing a pick when he came in at the end of Marshall. Because
clearly wasn't ready for the moment. I mean,
because go back and watch when he came in against Wisconsin and the guy was like, I'm ready. Like, bring it. He was like, he was like when a wrestler gets called in the Royal Rumble and he sprints down the thing and jumps in there, starts throwing it. He was like that. He was like, I'm ready to go. Bring it. All of a sudden he's throwing a slant to Kevin Austin and doing the Conor McGregor dance, right? Like this guy was feeling it. He was confident. And the players were loving it. Like he brought that kind of level of confidence. I mean, he did not look like that guy at the beginning of last week. So if he can get back to that guy, then that's fine. And I to Mike's point, I will say that obviously, in high school, he was good in high school. I mean, all these guys are good in high school, whatever. He was a good recruit. Like, I saw him at the opening, right? And he finished top 5 in the Elite 11, right? Like he was really good. He's really good. Like, he made a lot of great like throws with anticipation, accuracy. You would have said, wow, this guy's kind of surpassing what I thought. But then there's all these other factors. It's like you're the 7-on-7 guy here, and you're not like the quarterback of Notre Dame. And it's like you're 0-2, and there's all these other things, right? So there's a lot of other mental factors that go into it. And it's Tommy Rees's job to get him going, which he did, and he played better. But now it's his job to kind of like take him to another level, and that's really where it's at. And I think it's fair to say that no one should be confident that he can get to that level yet, because he hasn't shown it. He hasn't shown it yet. And if he shows it this week, then, a lot of people will feel better about Drew Pine going into the bye than they do now, or they did at the beginning of that Cal game.
Right. Andy Davis, I mean, this is his first career start in Notre Dame in a green out, trying to get Freeman his first win. If there's any time for Pine to feel the pressure, it was then. We've seen him play much better. Sure, right. Like we don't deny that the pressure was reasonable, right? Like, of course. And to his point at the end, we have seen him play better. Like the Cincinnati game, and that was a situation where he came in and they had to chase the game. Right. So there was none of this. There was none of this ball control stuff. Right. There wasn't that because they couldn't.
Yeah.
They didn't.
You're coming in. You're the hero.
They were down 17.
Whatever, yeah.
He was down 17. They had to chase the game. They had to throw the ball downfield. And look, sometimes those passes did not go to the right person. Okay. He didn't make the best reads in that game. But if you look at the quality of pass that he's actually making, he can spin it. Like he can spin it just fine. Right. Like it's not that. It's just that the decision-making aspect is where it's lacking. And that's, and that's when he gets in his head. Like, so when you have a quarterback who isn't making the best decisions, just generally, right? And look, that was the read on him all camp, right? He's throwing a lot of interceptions, right? So that lends itself to making poor decisions. And then you see him in the game and he's clearly feeling the pressure. It's like, okay, we're not going to put too much on him in this one. We're going to do what we can. Now, obviously, we want him to open it up more, and we believe he can open it up more, but we haven't seen it. And until we see it, there's going to be some doubt, right? Yeah. So I'm, that's where I'm coming from in terms of just caveating, like all the stuff we're talking about with Notre Dame and matchups and where the matchups work for them and that sort of thing. I think if Notre Dame comes out in this game and starts slow again and continues to just give the ball back to North Carolina, North Carolina will eventually figure out how to score. They will score points. If Notre Dame just keeps coming up empty and just gives it back to them, right? So that's where it gets a little squirrely. Like all this analysis gets a little squirrely if Notre Dame starts slow again. Okay, I don't think.
Notre Dame can't come out and have those first 5 things. They'll get blown out if they have the first 5 series that they did in this game. They were lucky they were playing Cal's offense, so that was a big difference. Just kind of before we move on from this, though, I do want to point out, because I was thinking about this as we were talking about it, and Ian Book and all that. If people recall, Ian Book's first start also on the road against North Carolina. He wasn't that great in that game. He wasn't very good. He wasn't very good. He was good enough, but they didn't. Obviously he had a lot better pieces around him in that game. But the difference between him then and then when he had to come in against LSU and they knew he was kind of he was a completely different guy. So where's Pine? I think confidence and mindset that is going to be an important thing. So where is his confidence there? So I think it would be huge if Notre Dame was to score early and have success early in this game. And if Pine throws a touchdown, whatever, and makes a great throw or two on that drive, I think that would be significant, and I think that could go a long way in Notre Dame winning the game.
Yep, agree. We need Jimmy Clausen 2008 start to this game, but not a defensive finish like that year. So, yes. What was that, 14-3? I want to say that 2008 game was at North Carolina that Mike's talking about. I know they looked really good in the first half, and then he threw a pick six on the first possession of the second half. And then Notre Dame went on to lose that game. So obviously so much is different, but he's talking about the start. That would be good. That would be good. One thing
I think if they had Michael Floyd and Golden Tate too.
It would be great. Okay, let's get this from Eddie Davis. I think with Pine, you have to establish the run. Can't be pass first. I think it's okay given the talent they have. Got to keep playing bully ball, but that's boring for fans. So I don't have I think they will come out and try to establish the run just for a fact. But I do think they do need to get to the point where they're challenging teams on first down. They really do. It's the best way to play football. You don't want to be in a bunch of third downs, period. It doesn't matter if it's 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 7, right? Third down is not a great down, right? You want to be efficient on 1st and 2nd down. You don't want to get to those things. And a lot of explosives come on first down, when your offense has a two-way go. So I do think they will come out and establish the run. So I'm not disagreeing with that point, but they do need to be a dangerous team on first down with the pass. What do you think about that, Jamie?
Yeah, I think they need to. I mean, North Carolina's going to expect them to run, right? And of course, they need to be run. They need to establish their physicality. But I think a lot of it, there's got to be a lot of play action RPO stuff based on first down.
Yeah.
To threaten them there too, or else they just won't have the success. Yeah, because you can come out and run 3 runs right away, but if you're not if they're bringing a bunch of edge pressure to make plays just like Marshall was, and you're not taking advantage of it, then it's not going to be successful, right? So I think it's important to have that option.
Let's see. Does Freeman being a defensive-minded head coach affect Reese? For as much as Free said Reese has the keys, there was a comment from Marcus Freeman that he wanted to run and was surprised to see Reese call passes. What do you think, Jamie?
I don't remember that comment that Freeman said that where he was surprised that he.
I think he said something to the effect of he didn't. I don't know that he used the word surprised, but he had said.
Is this talking about the This is talking about last game, or is this talking about the Marshall game?
No, he was talking about last game. It was something to the effect of, "Oh man, we're passing the ball, and it's like, oh man, we got to keep running, we got to keep running." And Reese told him like, "No, like we need to pass in this situation, or we're gonna like this is a good time to pass, or something like that." It was something to that effect. I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something. He did make a comment like he want like I don't think he meant it as like I disagreed with him.
Yeah.
I think he thought like in his mind, we need to run and let's keep running because it's working. And Tommy basically told him like, no, like we got to dial up some pass plays here. It's okay, kind of thing. So I guess it kind of goes to like Marcus is having any sort of conversation with Tommy about what they're doing on offense. Like, does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't surprise me. I don't think that. I mean, I don't even think that's a defensive minded head coach thing. I think that's just like a head coach thing. Like you're just like he's thinking big picture. Brian Kelly would be thinking the same thing. He's thinking big picture and maybe Brian Kelly maybe have a little bit more an aggressive approach to it in that way. But I mean, everybody knows that Brian Kelly was like sit on a lead, be conservative in games. And I think because he, quote unquote, winning is hard, right? So he's thinking about in those terms. So I don't even think that is like I think that's like a conversation that he would have had with Brian Kelly and would have had with a lot of head coaches in that situation. I think the difference is that probably Reese has more agency to say like, no, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah. So Mike's saying it was a check. This is all kind of vaguely familiar to me. So I think that's right. So one thing I do think that Marcus Freeman needs to kind of stop talking about is being safe with the ball.
He needs to not mention all of these. He's too forthcoming with these conversations. In my opinion, he's too forthcoming with these kind of things. Don't give all the inside baseball. They don't need to. Everyone doesn't need to know. I think people like it, but that doesn't matter. Just don't. I think I'm guessing 2 years from now, he's not going to be sharing all that he's sharing now.
Even if he's sharing it, like I don't even want him saying it in private, because like, look, we get it. Okay, it's a thing in camp. We don't want to turn the ball over, right? Fine. Don't just make sure you're not turning the ball over. Fine. Stop talking about turnovers though. Stop talking about being safe with the ball. Like there's a reason that caddies don't tell their golfer like, hey, make sure we're not hitting in the water on the left. Make sure we're not doing that, right? Like Drew Pine needs to be confident in the things that he's doing. And if he sees it, he needs to let it rip. And if it's the wrong read, then you fix that and you move forward. Like he needs to be a confident thinker, not a conservative thinker, and that's how you play quarterback, in my opinion, So like, I think it was initially a thing where it's like, okay, he came out in like the spring and was like, we got to take care of the ball. No problem. In the spring, it's the fall now. We can't be worried about turnovers all the time. I don't like it. It stop talking about it. I that's something that I would like. I would like to do. Let's see. CMAC NBC needs to stay out of coach's box. I know that. Would that bother you guys if you were upstairs in the box? I assume he's talking about Reese. The chewing out of Pine that was caught on television.
Don't have any problem with it. I think it's good television. I mean, people want to see it. It's also too, they're not there trying to catch that. Like, I don't think NBC wanted to catch that because obviously you can see that he's cussing and they don't want that caught on TV. So I think they probably felt bad about that situation after. They're thinking something else is going to happen. They're thinking that he's going to be there like, don't worry, you got it. Like Michael Mayer going like, it's okay, man, whatever, right? That's what they're thinking was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then they got something else. I don't have any problem with it. Like, so they shouldn't show him at all during the games, or like guys reacting to like, they had a great play call and they got a touchdown. Like, no, that's good. That's good. Like, and even them catching that, think about 90, I would say like 90% of Notre Dame fans who watched that were like, that was good. Pine needed that. Pine played better after that.
Yeah.
This is football. This is whatever. This is how he spoke to him, was how Pine needed to be coached, and blah, blah, blah. Like, there's some people who found that negative, and there's going to be, people that don't like Notre Dame who are going to point that out all the time, but it worked. So I don't know. I don't have a problem with that at all. Maybe it might make Tommy think twice about it, but maybe not. Maybe he's just like, they already called me once. Like, what does it matter now? Right. Like, I don't know. I don't have a problem with it.
I don't have a problem. First of all, I don't like that he apologized for cursing. These are adults. Like, what are we talking about?
It is Notre Dame.
I don't know that, but so what? Like, these are adults. Like, look, everyone knows, okay? And not even a football. Like, this isn't even a football thing, right? It's a competitive situation, okay?
Yes.
There is nothing, and I truly believe this, okay? People need to be able to pick and choose when to throw the F-bomb. I think there is nothing more effective than a properly used F-bomb in context when it's appropriate. And I think it was appropriate in that situation, right? Like, we don't do that on this podcast. Why? Because it's inappropriate, right? We don't need to. We're talking. But if it's a competitive situation and you're talking to your team and you're talking to a player who is throwing the ball in the dirt and who's throwing the ball 5 yards over his top tight end's head, you might have to throw a little F-bomb in there. And it's like, you need to do your job. So I didn't have a problem with it. I think Vamos Iris makes a really good point about if you're on the sideline, the cameras are on you. And that's,
that's true.
That's true. Same for the booth. It's fair game. So I agree. I agree with that comment. I think that's true. We can't be surprised over sharing. He will learn. Unfortunately, we have to live with that. I'm living with it. I'm commenting on, I would like him to not. I don't care about sharing. I don't like I said, I don't want it to be in private. I know he's saying it, and that's why I'm commenting on it, because he said it in public. I don't want him to do this in private. Even if he's not telling
you
us.
Can't have that mentality, like, where it's like the first rule of Fight Club is no turnovers, right? Like, you can't come out and do that. Like, that can't be how you start an offensive meeting. Guys, first and foremost, main thing is we don't turn over the ball. It's like, it goes without saying. It goes without saying.
Yeah.
We don't need to reiterate that, because then I think that's also one of the reasons why Drew Pine was like the beginning of the game, because he's thinking about all the times that he didn't. Like, you don't want a guy to play like so free that he doesn't care, but at the same time, you also don't want to be like, Drew, remember, no turnovers on this drive, right? Like,
don't turn it over.
You can't play like that.
No.
So it's a great point by you.
Yeah. Got to toe the line. You got to toe the line. You gotta be able to say, like, okay, be take chances, but don't be reckless, And look, that's the nature of sport, right? That's the nature of competition. You got to be able to toe the line. I mean, people got mad at Ian Book for not throwing enough interceptions, right? They wanted more interceptions, because then that means more chances.
He didn't take enough chances. There was a lot of that.
Right. So, there's a balance, and they got to meet it. And, that's where it is. So, Jamie, your prediction will be coming up on the site. I think I'm going to get in on it too. I need to send Mike an email, and he's going to get my glorious prediction. And as a matter of fact, I won't even spoil it on this. I won't even spoil it, even though I think people can kind of have a sense of where I'm leaning there. But so that's what we're going to do. We're going to put in our predictions, and they're going to go up on the site. And I'm going to get on that. Jamie's 6 Thoughts on a Thursday has come out. So it is a banger as usual. So I want everyone to check that out. That is our show for the day. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you saw, like what you heard, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. We will be back on the post-game show right after the North Carolina game ends. I will be on that with Jamie and Mike. At least I think Mike will be on it. I'm pretty sure he will be.
He will
and so that we're going to do that. We have the morning after show that I'm going to be doing on Sunday that I love to do. And so we'll do that stuff. So yeah, stay locked in to irishsportsdaily.com, and we will talk to you guys very soon. Hopefully after an Irish victory on Saturday.